They say all men are created equal.
Shot! Master!
I'll pull out the Glock.
Full of suffering succotash, son.
One of your nuts is hanging out of your shorts.
Real glass!
You have a father, but your father's dead.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Too Sweet podcast with Lucy and Estelle. And I'm sorry I haven't been around for like 2 weeks. I went on holiday. Went to Lanzarote. It was very nice. Got a tan. And Estelle held the fort on her own last week, which was great. Like that was I listened back to it, and like I was saying to you before, it was nice to be able to watch back and not cringe at my own face or voice. So thank you for doing that. So this week we've got a Dynamite review again, and yeah, lots of stuff went down this week. It's been very dramatic these past couple of weeks, loads of stuff to talk about. But before we get into that, we have a little bit of a backlog of questions from a few weeks ago that we never got around to answering that I'm going to quickly cover today. There's only two. Two amazing top tier questions. First one is from Ian. Which indie wrestler has the most potential to make it if they want to? I think that if they want to bit is quite interesting thing to put on the end of it, Ian, because like some indie wrestlers, it depends what you mean by make it, and some of them don't want to. Some of them literally do it as a hobby. Not to say they're not passionate about it or anything, but they don't really have any desire to sort of make it a full-time thing, which is, you know, that's their prerogative. Do whatever you like. But they're still amazing wrestlers. But so I mean, to answer the question, and Estelle, I'm sure you probably know what I mean because you came to one of the Markham shows where RPD was one of the biggest stars. RPD's like, he's not a young guy, like, but he is in such amazing shape. He's an amazing wrestler, and he connects with the crowd so much. I kind of see him as like a WWE guy. I don't know, like I can just see him, that sort of character, resonating with WWE and their audience. And I've said this before. He's just got this connection with the fans that's really special. And I can definitely see him going far if he wanted to. Who else? Bryan Danielson's really good. He wrestles. He's actually recently become the KLW heavyweight champion, and he's a very natural bad guy. And like RPD, he's got a background in combat sports as well. And we know that wrestling companies like it when they've got the real background of real sport. As well, Leon Slater, but that's an obvious one. He kind of already has made it. He wrestles in TNA. But he's got the potential, like, I mean, the sky is the absolute limit for that guy. And as well, Natalie Sykes, she's amazing. I can see her going super far as well with whatever she wants to do in her career. Super charismatic, super athletic. Underrated as well, I think. The next question is quite related to that. Who is your favourite bald man out of the Blackpool Combat Club? Now, two of the people I've just mentioned, RPD and Bryan Danielson, are both bald. So, yeah, both of them.
There's a pattern with all your faves, just accumulating every bald man in wrestling at this point.
There is a pattern. And
the balder the head, the greater the connection with the crowd.
So true.
It reflects off.
Shelton Benjamin is another example. Recent guy.
Byron Saxton.
Yeah. Ricochet. Did you ever see that thing on him on Instagram Live? And someone was like, "Why are you bald?" And he was like,
yeah, and he absolutely just popped off. Yeah.
He was fuming. He was absolutely fuming. Who's your favourite bald guy outside of the Blackpool Combat Club, Estelle?
I mean, my brain's just blank. Like, all I think of is Byron Saxton and FTR bald.
Yeah. It's that the power comes from, they absorb the
sun.
But
I'm sure there's, I mean, it's got to be Stone Cold, isn't it? Like, what am I on about? It's got to be Stone Cold.
The final boss of bald men.
Do you know, I think he just kind of one-ups Byron Saxton just a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it's actually like one of those pub quiz questions of, if someone, I was in a pub quiz, name 5 bald wrestlers just off the top of your head now within 15 seconds. It's quite challenging.
And yeah, it is, but considering how many of them there actually are.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is a thing.
Like my brain's just frozen up.
Well,
yeah, go Stone Cold. I mean, there's The Rock as well. Jesus, why is it taking me so long?
There's so many.
The Rock is not my favourite. The Rock is nowhere near my favourite. Just just putting that out there. But yeah,
Oh, that should be our next big thing is tier ranking all the bald wrestlers.
I'm into that.
Yeah, this is the content we're all really here for.
Just Lucy's fetish.
It's not fetish. It's
Pitbull
not a fetish. Let me
number
make
one.
that clear. Let's not make it
Uh,
weird. But if you have any other questions about bald men, feel free to let us know in the comments. But unless we've got
She's
anything to add
pushing
to
that bald
that,
man agenda.
I
Well,
guess we
who's
should.
your favourite bald man? Let us
Who,
know.
yeah, let us know in the comments below who you think
And
the
what
best
indie
bald
star do
wrestler is.
you think has the most potential to break out?
Yeah, that's probably the
We'd
question we
love to
should be
hear.
focusing on more.
Especially like if you know of any in the American indies or
Yeah.
thereabouts, because obviously you could only hear a little bit from social media, but I'm sure if you go into your local indie show, wherever you are, you probably know some names that we've never even heard of. So we'd love to hear about them.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. There's so many. I mean, the indie scene is fucking huge, like global, worldwide. That's why it's so great. So get to your local indie promotion if you can. Support them. So with
Yes.
that, should we go into the Dynamite review for this week?
We shall, we shall, we shall. So it started off with Copeland on the phone, and he announced that the match later on tonight was going to be a no DQ match against Brody King. And my God, what a pop it received. The
Yeah.
Edmonton crowd was amazing. I feel like we've just been on such a hot streak for crowds. I love to give a good shout. A good crowd to me just absolutely makes or breaks a show. Yeah, they were just on fire, and there was just some right characters in the crowd.
Yeah, there
I don't think
was,
I've ever
wasn't
seen so
there?
many hockey shirts in my life.
Yeah, and especially in the opening moments, I noticed they kept on zooming in on certain people and like they were like looking right at the crowd. I was like, God, all right.
Yeah, I mean the beer must have been flowing or something
Yeah,
because the vibe was
must
the
have been
vibe was
cheap.
rocking in Edmonton. Yeah, get back there. Um, but yeah, we then went into the Dynamite intro because I thought maybe it's going to be a cold opener, and it was straight to the Elite intro.
Yes.
Obviously, you said that you watched the podcast back. I don't know if you watched the actual episode of Dynamite or you just watched the episode as like, a catch up. But
Yeah,
whether this
no,
was like your first time seeing the Elite intro is my point. Like,
yes,
what you thought of it?
it was my first time. Yeah, I didn't get around to watching the full episode, so I kind of relied
Yeah.
on you to give me the catch up, which was great, very thorough, and God, even so, I wasn't prepared for that. Like it was
The
it was
absolute
so
madness.
funny and iconic. I was just like, yes, this is
Yeah.
this is what I'm here for. Like it's just perfect heel stuff. It's like, of course they would do that. They would do something like that. They would hold the video editors hostage backstage until they edited that together for them.
Yeah. Really proper leaning into the NWO um allegations
Yeah,
and
they're like,
AEW
we're
with the
here.
end of WCW allegations. But yeah.
Absolutely there.
So then we opened up with an absolute belter of a first match, Orange Cassidy versus Trent Beretta, and I thought, wow, what a hot match to start off. You know, they really have just cooked up their own little blood feud, probably the biggest blood
Yeah.
feud going right now in AEW. For two mid carders. Not
Mm.
saying Orange Cassidy's got no name value, he's one of the biggest stars on the show, but they've let him cook. We've let him cook, and they've cooked, I think. Also, speaking of weird characters, there was some weird flashing, and I'm sorry, I've just got to bring it up. It was just so bizarre.
Yeah, it
Don't know whether
was.
that was consensual. Don't know what was
I
going on there.
I'm glad you said that because I noted that
It was
down as
just
well.
weird.
I just put someone flashing their titties in the crowd. Why do they keep on putting a camera on weird people? But
Yeah.
that was like, yeah, like you said, was that consensual? Because she wasn't the one. It was someone. Oh,
Then
don't
she was
know.
smiling, but then I was like,
Yeah.
I guess some people in that position would just smile about it. Do you know what I mean? Because of the awkwardness.
Mm.
But the fucking again, why is the camera on film like that? It's fucking weird. Anyway, back to the action. And Trent Beretta had the worst DIY best friends t-shirt ever. It was like the worst. It was just a brilliant gimmick, terribly cut, terribly pasted over to just. Oh,
It's a
it was
home job.
fantastic. Um, yeah. What did you think of it?
I I thought it was a really good match. Like you say, a great way to kick off Dynamite in like a really strong way. I don't know if it's because I've missed maybe a lot of programming lately. Um, I don't tend to watch Rampage. I do sometimes watch the Collision highlights, but I don't watch the whole show. Obviously, didn't watch
Yeah.
last week. The story sort of feels a little, not the story, maybe the payoff feels a little bit half baked. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
but do you
know.
think this was a total payoff? I don't think it was.
No, no, you're right. It's not. But I
This
don't
is
know with
just
it. I just felt like maybe comms on commentary they didn't play off as like the big sort of match that I would have wanted it to be. And yeah, it's not going to be the last time they face off. And like you said, it's not the payoff. But I don't know. I was just a bit like, oh, they got a match now. I don't know. I feel like with a big feud, you'd maybe hold it off and build it up a bit more.
yeah. I mean, I think 'cause it's like just a bit of a like, even though it's the hottest blood feud, it is still a mid-card feud. It's
Yeah.
not going to be like the biggest draw, so I can see why it's going to be enough of a draw maybe for a TV rating as opposed to a pay-per-view. I can see your point though, but I think because of the way they've told the story and the time they've told the story, it was like they just kind of had to sort of have some payoff. Maybe it wasn't the most satisfying, but yeah, I think the satisfying payoff was with the street fight when he was against Chucky and he just fully went dark mode and smashed his leg in. I think that was. Then again, like
Yeah,
you said, that was on Rampage. So
and they're really
and
playing that off,
yeah,
like saying that Chuck Taylor might never wrestle again.
yeah.
That's a big bold statement.
Um, this match was great. It was so lively. I loved how it instantly spilled into the crowd, which, like we said, was very lively. Um, and for me, it felt pretty high tension. Maybe like, I guess now you're saying, yeah, maybe comms could have played it up more, but I think in terms of in-ring action, other than maybe making it a bit more gimmicks and a bit more street fighty and putting blood in it, I think it was pretty like tense, especially like
Yeah.
Orange Cassidy selling. Um, yeah, the suplex to Trent like on the into the crowd. And then at this point, I think they kind of made the way back to the ring. And then Don Callis came out, and I really wanted to get your opinion on that. What did you think about, like I said last week, Don Callis just randomly came out. He whispered some words in Cassidy's ear, and then he came out for this match. And he stayed on comms the whole night because Taz is currently undergoing some medical issues with his knee. I think he's getting like some rehab done on it. So
Mm.
I thought that was really nice how they tied him in with the story and then kept him on comms all night. And we've given him his flowers time and time again. Callis is a brilliant heel commentator. He really brings it. Um, but yeah, what do you think about that union between the two?
I think you said this last week, so I don't want to like say something and like take credit for what I think I'm just copying exactly what you said, which is Don is preying on the vulnerable, which is
Yeah,
exactly the sort of thing that would make sense for him to do and that he has done in the past. Like he's that type of heel who would he sees, and he said this on commentary. Like he really put Orange over like the potential that he's got, everything he's done and everything he
yeah.
can do.
Which is what a lot of people have said, in the fandom. People have always been like, why don't you take it to the next level?
Hmm. Yeah,
So it's
and
kind of meta in that way.
yeah, and Don sees the potential. Obviously, he's got this group of amazing, talented wrestlers, and he sees another one who's vulnerable right now and has broke off from the group that he was with, and he's like, it's free real estate. Um, and I like that. I like that story because then it's like, well, is Orange doesn't really seem like the type who can be easily manipulated by someone, but you don't know because obviously, like I said, he's in this really vulnerable state and he wants
Yeah.
success. And if Don Callis is going to promise him that, then who knows what's going to happen. But it's just a bit of a weird dynamic, I thought, because Don's obviously a
It is
really
a
good
strange
heel.
Yeah. dynamic.
Yeah, Don's a really good
And
heel,
he's
and
and
Orange is
Orange
super
Cassidy is a
over.
face, and
Yeah,
he's still a face in this. It would the natural route, and I'm glad they didn't. But the natural route would be to align Callis with Trent Barretta
yes.
because he's the heel. But the more interesting route is to pair him with Orange Cassidy because we don't know where it's gonna go. So
Yeah.
And like we've complained about predictability, so I think, you know,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
more interesting that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like intriguing because you've got Don on commentary saying stuff, putting Orange over, and you're just like, well, yeah, you're right, I agree.
Yeah.
When normally you're like, shut up, you dickhead. So
Yeah, it was
it gives it
crazy. And the
like
rest of the
layers
night
and
he was a
dynamics.
heel.
Hmm.
But in that match he kind of felt face, but
Yeah, yeah, he
it's
did.
just he's just vouching for his guy. You know, if it was a Takeshita match, he'd vouch for Takeshita. But like you say, they're all not. Everyone in the family other than Osprey is a heel,
Mhm.
so
It's there's a lot.
it's an
It's
interesting dynamic.
yeah, it's multi-dimensional, and I like that. It's
Yeah,
sometimes stuff like that. You run the risk of it being overcomplicated, but I'm not getting that with this. I'm
I feel
just
like the
getting,
Callis family people have kind of said it's getting a bit tired or run out of legs a bit. Um, so I think Orange Cassidy's a nice way to just sort of rejuvenate it.
yeah.
I don't think it has run out of legs, but I think it's like getting to that point of awe, and then he finds another semi underrated, talented wrestler, adds him to the family. Nothing really happens. Has a big feud with someone, loses the feud. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just kind of spices it up a little bit.
Yeah, something a bit different.
And I love this line of, "It's nice to have a best friend, but you need a family." That was great. I love that
Yeah.
line.
That's
Um,
that's so
yeah,
quotable. Like that should be in like a video package. He just dropped that casually on commentary.
yeah, yeah. Um, and talking about the brutality, the jumping pile drivers.
Oh,
What the hell?
nasty.
That was really nasty. And yeah, I mean to do it twice as well. Um, he went for the running knee strike. He took the turnbuckle off, had an altercation with the ref. While his back was turned, Cassidy also took uh, the buckle off and lured Beretta in. And yeah, just a quick roll up. 1, 2, 3. Um, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a he. I mean, is it heel or is it just smart baby face? I guess maybe I'm overthinking it.
I
Because he's
thought the
always kind of
same.
had that desperation, but it is kind of there's a line between desperation and I guess evil, like being
Mm.
sadistic. There's a line between yeah, where you can be so desperate and so ambitious and so driven to something that and like we say, Callus can corrupt that and just push him over to the dark side. And he'll be
Mm.
justified, so in doing so, because it'll be a means to an end. So and it's like it's interesting because I think if they play this off well, he's going to be a bigger heel and more of a bastard than Trent Beretta. And then
Yeah.
Trent Beretta will look like the face in the situation, and that's such an interesting dynamic.
Well, I agree, and I felt a little bit sympathetic towards Trent, like when he lost, and they zoomed in on his facial expressions, and he was like, "What? How the hell have I just lost that?" Because
Yeah,
he'd spent, like we said, with the jumping pile drivers, the whole match brutalizing Orange, looked like he was definitely going to win, and then Orange outsmarted him with a bit of a heel move. That
yeah,
that's what I thought when I first saw it. My initial reaction was that's a bit of a heel thing to do, to steal the win like that. But depends how you look at it. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's very Orange Cassidy to do something like that, though. It's like,
yeah.
get the win where he can.
Very grey area, and he's always kind of been a bit of a grey character
Mm.
because of his nonchalance. He can kind of push the boundaries a little bit more than other people, and you can kind of give him more leeway for things. But Trent did come, from that. He was sympathetic, I think, for a moment, and then he attacked him from behind.
Yeah,
And then we got the pile driver on the steel steps after the two jumping pile drivers. We get this
yeah,
nasty, and the way he was like struggling to sort of hold him, the whole thing just, ooh, it was like toe curling, it was
yeah,
goosebumps, it was, ooh,
yeah.
it was
It
chilling.
was so well executed.
Um, yeah, and then they kind of had a face off. I think one of them had like a cinder block, one of them had a chair. I want to say it was Cassie that had the chair.
Yeah.
And Don Callis was the voice of reason and actually stepped in between him,
Mm-hmm.
which God who thought that would happen. He sort of pulled Cassidy away, Um, Statlander comes out and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Trent tells her to shut the fuck up. I gasped at that. I was like, "Oh, that's so bad."
Rude.
Um, how rude. And then yeah, that was sort of it. He sort of sulked into the back, and you kind of were left with more questions than answers, which I think is an achievement in a
Mm,
match like that, where how easy it would have been to have fallen into clean cut and dry, heel, baby face, to play it off the way that they did. It's really something, and so that's why I also think, obviously it's not the concluding, it's not the payoff match. There has to be
yeah.
more.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It could have been like exactly like you say, really easy just to do Trent Beretta, full heel, Don Callis family, but that would have been really boring, to be honest, and not interesting. But what we've got now is, like you say, got us asking questions and wanting to see more. So that's exactly what you want.
Yeah. And I think just again, I always just sing the praise of Orange Cassidy, but to be on TV as long as he has and been such a permanent fixture on the roster and to have not grown stale once and to have reinvented himself but in such subtle ways. He's never
Yeah,
and in a way that's given the character such longevity because he's never just done the quick, oh well I'll just go full heel or oh well I'll just go fully impassioned, which he could do. He could have that knee-jerk reaction to gain some heat or to gain some traction, but he's never done
yeah,
that. He's protected. You talk about character protection. People don't protect characters anymore, like The Undertaker. It's a criticism of modern wrestling. People are just so fast to heel to face to heel to face. And it doesn't make any sense in the psyche of the character because people aren't like that. But I just want to again just sing the praises of him and the way that the control that he has over that character, the longevity, and just the moments he's given us with that character. It's great.
yeah,
He is one of the goats. And that is why, when we did the tier ranking of the roster, bringing that one back, and I really argued his case because he just does so much, and it's not until you sit and you think about it and you really
yeah.
like take it in. He really is a master of his craft.
Yeah, that's so true. And like you saying that, excellent point that like it's subtle developments of the character, so it's not the same as it was however many years ago, but it's consistent and you don't notice it. That and you're so right because you saying that's made me think about it, and I'm like, shit, yeah, no, I didn't notice that, but he's not the same. But it always makes sense, not just with the story that he's in, but for the character that he's spent all his time developing.
Yeah. So after that banger, we had a lot of Elite shenanigans throughout the night. The Elite have kind of been the thread kind of keeping the shows together recently.
Mm,
Um,
yeah,
you have the Elite at the start, you have the Elite in the interim of the show, and then you have the Elite closing the show, and that's been the theme for many weeks. Again, we're not going to go fully into it, but I did just want to say how funny it is that this is the top dominant stable of AEW and not the Devil, not Undisputed Kingdom. I mean, thank God they
crazy.
pivoted. And again, we're not going to get into this fully. Thank God they pivoted. But I just had to just say that because I'm like, God, how are they going to bring MJF back into this? Because I know you say that the emotion of Adam Cole will be enough, but talk about a flop. And again, I'm sorry for bringing it up again. It's beating a dead horse, but I just had to. It's just been on my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. I choose not to think. I just like
Yeah, let's choose not to.
not
Let's choose
thinking.
not to
No,
think. Wise words.
turning brain off. Like we said a
Yeah,
few weeks ago. Think less, feel more. No, but
think less, feel more.
yeah, it makes me sad to think about it, and it makes me sad to think about MJF and Adam Cole hurt and
Yeah.
probably hurt physically as well as emotionally because of all that momentum that they had, and it's unfortunately been lost. But hopefully that means with the time and the energy that they can put into a good return, then it will be effective when it does happen. But yeah, it's crazy to think where we're at compared to where they probably wanted to be at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Elite have just slotted right into that position. It was obviously the net. It was just such a knee-jerk reaction showing the footage but I mean, things work out for a reason and Jack Perry's more over than ever. So,
Hmm.
you know, Yeah, so we got a little scene with the Elite parking in Tony Khan's spot, which was, they called I think like a stage hand or a parking attendee of Mark, which was great. And then we got Jack Perry doing a post Dynamite promo from last week, and he said Kenny was a coward and not the hero AEW needed. And I like that. I like how every week we're setting out the motive. The motive is clear. The story is clear.
Hmm.
All it all makes sense. As quick as the pivot may have been, the story has substance and it
Yeah,
has legs.
it does. Yeah, and I just hate Jack Perry more and more each week, which is what you want.
Yeah. And then we got Kenny in hospital, and he just essentially said that a double or nothing. He can't be there, but he's gonna have Team AEW, which will be formed of FTR and then two more people who we found out later on in the show, which we'll talk about at the end. We'll take on the new elite of Okada, Bucks, Perry, and Anarchy against an Anarchy in the arena match at Double or Nothing. So that's just a great match announcement. And I think at this point I was pretty excited to see who the two people would be before I knew. Hindsight's
Yeah,
twenty
it
twenty.
was
You
it
know what I
was
mean? I could try to
intriguing.
picture myself in that moment. I was like, oh, who's it going to be?
Yeah, same. Because you got a whole roster full of guys, and it was definitely. And I like the fact that
And
they
a lot
planted
who
that.
hate the Bucks.
Yes, exactly, and they've got reason to, so it makes sense. But I like the fact that they planted that seed in the middle, and then
Yeah,
played out to the end, and then that's when you found out. That was a nice way to, like you said before, like the elite like pulling the whole show together.
yeah. And then next was the Serena Deeb segment. I went on a massive rant about it last week, and again, I do want to hear your thoughts on that. Um, because I was just absolutely floored at the decision of all the people on the roster for your top title. It just fell out of left field for me. So what are you feeling about that? And what are you feeling about this segment as well?
Yeah, I don't really know where, like you were saying last week, like where it came from, like what this decision was, and I'm like, well, I don't know much about her. Like, I'm open-minded to see if she can change my mind, like if she can win me over, sort of thing. With this promo, she kind of sounded a bit stiff and a bit nervous, which is fair enough. Like, she was being interviewed by Tony Schiavone like up on the stage. So it was a little bit awkward because she was trying to, it was as if she was trying to respond to the crowd, but she was faced away from them and talking to the camera at the same time. So she was like turning to react to the crowd and then turning back to the camera. So that was a little bit awkward, not her fault. She was talking about how she was on the shelf for 15 months because of a medical issue where she had unexplained seizures, and she was like, don't know when I'll get another one, and it's scary, worst time of my life. And the only thing that kept her going was that she wanted to come back and win the world championship. And I was like, oh, okay. That's that's an inspirational story. Like, okay, you've fought whatever you were facing and you've come back and you want to win. Makes sense. Very sympathetic. And I feel like the crowd was sort of getting behind her, but then Tony Storm came out and just kind of pulled the rug from underneath her in a way, because people are still cheering for Tony. Now, she was trying to go full heel and being like, oh, you're just a charity case, take my money. And people were like cheering. It's like, you're not supposed to cheer. That's not what we're meant to
But
be
she's more
doing.
charismatic though.
Exactly, exactly. That's the thing. She's just like
I think you need
more
someone who's just as
entertaining.
charismatic or more as entertaining.
Hmm.
And it's not like those people don't exist on the roster. It's just for whatever reason they haven't been put into that position yet. It's almost like he just loves Tony Storm so much and he's so excited. He's kind of edging himself to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I.
I found it very, very awkward, very stiff.
Mhm.
And we're always gonna have empathy towards people like that, like and people who she is a veteran. She was in WWE. She did the Punk stuff. She was a trainer, in WWE. She came to AEW. She's in her late 30s. I have and medical issues. I have a lot of empathy. I think she sounds like an amazing person. She's definitely had a contribution to women's wrestling behind the scenes. But even so, like I didn't. what you always talk about, believable contender. I didn't for one moment think she was a believable
Yeah,
contender.
exactly. That's
And
the
the whole
problem.
promo, she tried to kind of turn it on that and kind of be like, people say I'm not a believable contender, I am, but I still walked away from the promo being like, you're not.
Yeah,
You
exactly. It
know,
was like, okay, tell us your story, but I want to know the reasons why. Sh Can you show us why you're a viable contender? And we still haven't really got that. So then you're still kind of going into this match thinking, I don't really think Tony Storm's gonna lose this one.
I think if she'd started from the bottom of the card and built her way up from Rampage or be it Ring of Honor, and I think had she started off as that sympathetic babyface, that I'm come back and I'm clawing my way to the title, and she's in the background moving closer and closer towards the title, and she would have gained hype and momentum that way. And but so when she got to Tony Storm, she would have had a bit more charisma and she would have had a bit more about her. But to select some random ass person who, yeah, I'm sure as a person deserves that chance, but everyone deserves the chance to be world champion, unfortunately.
Hmm.
It just doesn't work for TV. I was cringing, and I don't think you should ever be cringing at wrestling
Yeah, no.
unless it's like comedy and intentional. I can't tell you the last time I cringed at wrestling. I couldn't.
It's not the
Like in recent
reaction you're looking
just
for, is
wasn't the
it?
place on the card at
Mm,
all. Like I say, you could, if you want to build her up, like, you had those cool packages of her being the escape artist and whatever, and you built a small bit of intrigue, and you could have kept building that intrigue and building up a win-loss score, make her have a massive win score, and and Tony Storm could overlook it, and you could build it up that way, and then she'd be rootable as an underdog. But you can't just come in and be like, "Here's my sob story," and it sounds harsh, but it's true. You can't just come in and be like, "Here's my sob story," and then Tony Storm comes out, like you say, and just steamrolls her with
yeah.
charisma, absolutely floors her, and it's just,
That was hard to watch because
ooh,
I felt
it was
for Serena
painful.
because, yeah, because she obviously tried so hard to get the crowd on her side, but the minute Tony came out, everyone was like, "Yay, we love you." Even though she was trying to go full heel, she really was, but she's just funny. She's just too funny and like for people to want to boo her.
Yeah, and that's fine, that if that's naturally, you've always got to go with the crowd. If that's the way
Mm,
the crowd will tell
yeah,
you who someone is.
yeah,
The crowd will decide. If the crowd's decided that's what she is, like a comedy heel, then that's what she is.
yeah.
Um, but I find it interesting as well that this segment ended with Serena on top. Tony Storm went for the cheap shot. Serena Deeb hit it with the right hand, and yet I still don't believe it.
Hmm.
We're sat here talking about Tony Storm's charisma.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I think the main problem is Serena Deeb doesn't have a character. I know, like people argue, not every wrestler needs to have a character or a gimmick, and yeah, true to an extent. But what notable characteristics does she have that everyone's like, oh yes, I know this about her? To me, nothing really, and that's
And when you're going against such a strong character as well, someone who is
exactly,
100% character,
yeah.
her in ring work, not that she's a bad wrestler, but her in ring work as Timeless Tony Storm it's not like people like Tony Storm, because like, oh my God, did you see that match she had at this pay-per-view? It was mad, man. You got to watch it. Like, no one's saying that. People just like her because she's funny and she's entertaining, and that's fine. That is absolutely fine. But if you're going to get someone who's all character, you need someone.
You need something
It
to match up to that.
bloody
You're just
You
gonna,
need Joe Hendry or something. You need someone on that level of
yeah,
like hilarity, and
just something to match
yeah,
up to it.
it's just
Someone to get
a
behind.
weird choice.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's just like he likes, I guess my theory would be he likes Serena Deeb. She's done a lot backstage and she's nearing probably her retirement, and this is probably him just throwing her a bone as someone, because he is a pretty decent boss for the people he likes, and he'll always try to be the friend rather than the boss.
yeah.
So that's kind of how I would read it, is he's just trying to, you know.
That's
Just
similar
do a
to
favor for a
yeah.
friend, but that isn't how you book a wrestling show. And if you are going to do that and you are going to throw someone a bone, don't patronize me as the audience that you can just cart or anyone out. For the women, this is prestigious. I'm not gonna let AEW gaslight me that it isn't prestigious. It's the women's world title, and you wouldn't do that for the men's title. You wouldn't fucking pluck anyone out for the men's title. So why are you doing it for the women's? Yeah, but obviously it is week 1 really of the feud starting, so we'll
We'll
continue
see
to
where it
monitor it.
goes. Yeah.
And we want the bet. We're not trying to shoot people down, We're not trying to shit on people or cut the legs out from underneath them. We genuinely want what is best for the women's division, as do many fans. But we're not gonna ever sit here and say something's good just because it's women's wrestling, just because it's women, because that's not fair to anyone.
Well, exactly. You should call it how you see it, don't you? And unfortunately, like that's how wrestling is sometimes, is that there's just not the effort put into women's stories. And if that's the case, then I'm not just gonna sit here and be like,
And if
I
there's no
love
potential, we wouldn't
yeah,
care.
yeah,
We wouldn't care, but it frustrates us because there is such great people on that roster
exactly.
and there is a wealth of talent. And with the right booking, you could have mega stars there, not just by chance, a la Britt Baker role model, but by choice and by, crafting these people and building them up yourself. You can have that homegrown talent. You could have pillars of the women's division, just like you had it for the men's, with the same amount of prestige. Because I tell you what, Jungle Boy and Britt Baker have been there the same. They're probably at the same level of rep, I guess now. But equally, so has Penelope Ford and Darby Allin. And there's no reason why Penelope Ford couldn't be a Darby Allin, because she has a similar sort of style of, she kind of can wrestle that risky style. There is no reason. And that's why it frustrates me, and that's why we both talk about it the way we do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not 2008 Divas WWE Women's Division. It's not that. There are genuine athletes in there
Yeah,
and people whose potential hasn't been scratched. And I don't think there's anything more frustrating than untapped potential in wrestling. I really don't.
exactly. When that division is pretty deep with talent, it's like, what are you doing? Give me something.
Yeah, what?
That's what makes it more frustrating.
So next we had Orange Cassidy and Rocky Romero, which I found this really weird because the previous week Rocky Romero was like, "I'm single, me. I don't want to be involved with anything." Then this week he's like, "Oh, Orange, have you heard about this trios title?" I was like, "What?" But last week he said
Yeah.
you done, and I kind of
How
took that as you
confusing.
fucking off and doing your own thing. But now
Extremely
you're kind of
confusing.
hanging about like a fruit fly. It was very confusing. Um, yeah, and then we got our only women's match of the show, Mariah May versus Harley Cameron. So
Yeah, my first thought of this was that Halle Cameron needs her own entrance music because why is she coming out to Soraya's entrance music? I mean, I get that they're like a team or whatever, but like, come on,
yeah.
she's wrestling solo. She needs her own identity. She needs her own entrance music at the very fucking least. So, so yeah. But I mean, in
It was
general,
a first Dynamite match as well, I think, as well,
oh my God, right. So
which
that,
is
I mean,
interesting.
that makes it even more
So I just point
imperative,
that
I
out.
think, because
Yeah.
if you're maybe some people have this is for their first time seeing her in that case, then you need to establish that identity straight away. But no, we've just got it kind of tied into Saraya now. But it was a pretty decent length match, which was nice to see. And not a bad match at all. It was a shame that there was some distractions in the crowd with people being assholes, but I know people don't like Soraya, but fair to her for calling them out for it.
Yeah, I think they got the best out of each other. I mean, Mariah is definitely more athletic. Harley Cameron, I think she only just started picking up wrestling when she came to AEW and she was trained.
Right.
Um, so
Now considering,
credit to
especially considering that it was It was a good match. Mariah Mazer is, like you said, a
Yeah,
very good wrestler.
she's top notch. She's top notch. And you can always see that sort of stardom, background in her style, that Joshi style. Um, yeah, I mean, again though, what is when did this feud happen? Because
Um,
it wasn't set up last. I
yeah,
don't know if it was a Collision thing because I didn't catch Collision this Saturday. I don't know if it was a Rampage thing, but I was just a little bit like, this is quite random, and these are two people who are quite. I guess Mariah May is a bit more up, but who were quite low down.
yeah, I
And then I
wasn't
was
sure.
confused why like the Willow Sky Blue match was on Rampage, but then we get this for this.
Yeah, yeah. See, I'm glad that you said that because I was wondering if it was something that I'd missed because I was a bit like, this
No,
feels like it came out of nowhere.
no.
So yeah, I'm glad that you said that because I don't know where this feud's come from either. Happy for
I
someone to
thought
correct us in the comments if you can tell us the history of this feud. But yeah, I really wanted to see more Willow. Like I know we saw her later on, but yeah, that match with Sky Blue. Put that on Dynamite. Why is that not on Dynamite? I don't know. Why not
I
have
thought maybe
both?
this match. Yeah, why not both? Exactly, why not both? I thought this match might be like an engine for Mariah May was going to lose, and then it's going to keep slowly chugging along with that thing of because the week before Tony Storm threw in the towel, so there's a bit of tension. So I thought, oh, she's going to lose again, disappoint Tony Storm again, build up that tension, but then she just
Yeah.
won, and it was just like, what was the point?
Yeah, because I want to see them two fight. I mean, as in Tony and Mariah at some point. If they were building up to that, I expected it to that to play into it somehow, but no, we didn't see Tony at all.
Yeah. Um, which was very weird to not have her out, or not even Luther. I'm not sure what the deal is there. Mariah picked up the win with the Mayday. Saraya attacked. There was a post-match beatdown. Mina Shirakawa came out and made the save with queer baiting and champagne. That was that really. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe I'm assuming they have ties in like Stardom or something. That's why she came out. Yeah, just there's no issue for me with having them on. There's no issue for me with having just if it's as long as it's like 5% of the show is things that fan like Easter eggs like fans would have to watch other products to know about. I'm really not that uptight about it, but it is just I don't know. It's just a choice, and then obviously the chaotic nature of the characters just come out and do those things. It's like, oh, okay then, and it just you're trying to build up a women's division. I don't know if that is something I'll be putting on my flagship show in my only women's wrestling match.
yeah,
If I'm actually serious about it, because I don't know, like it just to me it just shows again that they're just not serious about it, and they'll just throw in whatever for a cheap pop.
yeah. I know what you mean. It's like
But yeah.
you've got a lot of women there who you could, if you want to throw someone extra in, you got a lot of people there you could already, and then you bring in this other product which can be maybe difficult to follow if like you don't watch that product, you're not familiar with it, especially like for a more casual sort of viewer. So yeah, I know what you mean, and it can seem a bit random. Um, it seemed quite random to me. Like you said, I don't really have a problem with it, but I definitely see. I agree with what you're saying.
Unless it's like a forbidden door thing. But obviously I don't think
Mm.
that's what it is. I think it's just a cheap, yeah, like I say, like a cheap pop. A
Hmm.
little just a moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, it's not that important. We don't need to dwell on it too much. The next segment was Emo Pack. He was not very oiled up today. I don't know why. Uh, you know, what I mean, like usually like his hair is like dripping, but it was all like poofed out. I don't know.
Distinctively dry.
The important observations here.
Hmm.
Uh, and he was asked if Death Triangle will be coming back, but before he could really make an answer, and it seemed like as though he was leaning towards no, he's just there for
Yeah,
solo stuff.
he was definitely
Bullet
about
Club Gold
saying.
came out
Hmm.
and just sort of baited him with their belt collection, and they just were being obnoxious as they always are, and were teasing about going after Okada and just getting under Pac's skin.
Hmm.
Um,
Being super annoying.
yeah. Then we got a Malachi Black segment, which was very boring. I just find it so, again, be a dead horse, don't want to keep repeating the same things. As I've said, it is an acquired taste. Maybe not for me, maybe my problem, but my God, I just find, and do you know what? I've just always find these sort of spooky monologue type things, even to the Wyatt family stuff, like it's just never been, it's so boring. Oh my God.
It's not
And the Julia
everyone's cup
Hart
of
stuff,
tea.
it's just get to the point. Can you do it in 2x speed, please?
Yeah, I
With
mean,
like some subway surfers in the background and like a soap stim board. Markiplier going jingle jingle. Can I have a bit of that maybe? That's what I need to watch a bloody House of Black segment.
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Not everyone's got the attention span to sit and listen to Malachi Black talk about whatever the hell he was
Not
talking.
Gen Z. Not Gen Z brain
Um,
rotters like
I,
us.
to be fair, I did one thing I picked up on this, and I'm not like massively into the spooky stuff. I'm not like against. Sometimes it can be interesting, sometimes it can be boring. Like it can be effective. But one thing I picked up on this was he said he's going to show everyone what a cold-hearted bitch or words to that effect. I'm not sure if that's exactly what he said, that Adam Copeland is, and I'm like, that might be potentially interesting because if he can bring out his really violent side, maybe turn him to the dark side, turn him
Yeah.
spooky. We said this a couple of weeks ago.
The
Copeland,
mist thing.
yeah,
And
he loves
then
that spooky stuff. So I felt like that's a little bit interesting. To see like if Malachi Black can bring out the worst in him.
yeah, that thread of the story is very it's intriguing. I've been enjoying it thus far. I didn't think I would, but yeah, that part I agree. It's something. And it's like with Trent and Cassidy and Christian and Copeland, you expect one of them, it's almost like the face is going to become everything he hates
Hmm.
because he's in competition with the heel.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice little synchronicity there. And then we got an Elite promo, um, and the stagehand brought the schedule of the show, and it just it was just like it wasn't really for anything. They just sort of approved it, and they were like, "Yeah, Swerve's up next," which tied in afterward. You understood why they did that, but again, it was just to kind of reinforce that they're running the show. They're
Hmm.
sat in Tony Khan's seat, in the producer's seat, and yeah, they've got the ultimate, like, absolute power over the show. It was just to reinforce that,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah,
Keep it in
exactly.
your mind. I forgot to mention this before, but up until this point as well, there was a lovely touch with the Swerve and Christian countdown.
Yes.
Because obviously next thing was Swerve coming out, but I just thought that was great.
Yeah, that was interesting. Like it just would come up, wouldn't it, at certain moments in the top corner of the screen, like counting down to when that was. That made it feel absolutely huge.
Yeah, and again, good on them. It's that and the threading of the Elite and kind of keeping the mystery opponents to the end. You'd think that that's a good way to sort of retain viewership throughout the end of the show because it can be very up and down with segments.
Hmm.
Um, so good on them for trying new tactics. But as someone who's going to watch regardless, I can appreciate it. And I can, like I say, it made it feel like a huge sort of face off, and like it was the main event, even though it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Swift came out and he basically was pissed off. He was fired up. He's in a fighting mood from last week's beatdown. Um, he eases out Christian, and Christian just lays it in, says he's been riding the wave of momentum, but the waves eventually crash. Yeah, some really nice lines from Christian. Said he's going to take everything from Swerve week by week until he takes the title. A nice bit of foreshadowing there. But Swerve has backup this time. He's not a stupid babyface. As we know, he's very calculated himself. Um, and he brought the Mogul Embassy, so it seemed that they were on a level playing field. There was a bit of a sort of a face off. Swerve also had a great line about Kendrick Lamar and Drake and
Yeah.
uh,
So topical.
fathers. Yeah, I love a pop culture reference in my wrestling. um false fathers from Toronto. That went hard. And then he was really he was really pumped up about this, and he thought, oh, Christian, and the way he sold it was brilliant. He really thought he was going to go in, thought that it was very believable. Like, Christian's a cowardly heel, so there's no way he'd go in there. But then because he was so heated, it made you think that he was going to go in there. And then the embassy descended upon Swerve, and it was like, oh. And I was quite grateful for this, because I've been saying for a while, like, we need to part ways with them. They're just kind of dead weight around him. I think he's lifted them up as much as he can. They've done as much as they can for him. It's time to go our separate ways. Yeah, Brian Cage striked first, and it became apparent that the mastermind was Christian Cage. The pretty brutal beatdown. They put him through the commentary desk. Again, I did have criticisms last week about maybe making Swerve look a little bit weak, but I'm okay with this, because I think, it's not like he's totally thick. Like, these are like his long-term I wouldn't say friends, but sort of like his dogs, his gang. And yeah, it was in a vulnerable moment, and they put him through the comm desk. That was very nice. Very brutal. It was befitting, it wasn't just like, oh, he got punched down, and he had
Yeah.
no fight. It was very, yeah. For what I'm trying to say, it just wasn't damaging towards his character.
No, yeah, no, it wasn't.
And then, especially since you find out after that, not only was it not Christian Cage, it was the Bucks who were behind it all along, and then that made it, there's layers, so it's not stupid babyface.
Yeah, and yeah, because you never got that impression. Like you said, he's very calculated. Um, and it's interesting to think now he truly is alone, and he's always been a bit of an underdog, but he's well and truly got to fight his own corner now. Which he's proven he's good at, but it's just, yeah, it just adds the extra layers, and makes sense that they turn on him now when he's champ, when they've got people in their ears and they want his championship, and he's took all the spotlight and things like this. So yeah, it was intriguing. I didn't expect it either. So yeah, good bit of television that.
Yeah, and they say they've got a working relationship, so that's interesting. You can see how potentially explosive that will be. Can all their egos coexist? But for now, it was just a nice way to just tie all the show together. And yeah, I noticed he didn't come out with Nana. But it's like you say, yeah, he's totally alone now. Whereas Christian's the opposite. He's surrounded by his family.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a theme as well when you think about the Don Callis family, the prevalence of family. We're in the era of family now. And AEW does that a lot, like two storylines will coexist with similar things, but I don't really mind. I kind of take it as a theme
Yeah.
or an era. Like, kind
Yeah.
of in literature, when you analyze literature as a motif, that kind of seems to be like the motif of the product at the minute. And I quite enjoy that.
Yeah, I like it too, because it gives a bit of consistency, and maybe consistency is not the right word, but like
I think
like
consistency is fair enough, because it's that commonality
yeah,
of when you've got so many different wrestling styles, so much going on. It's nice to have those common themes that you can identify that make AEW unique.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, the next up was Willow talking about winning a Manitoba street fight. We really heavily touched on this. All I wrote down was, why can't they put this match on Dynamite? And that I'm loving the edge to her character. I think, because she's she's the baby face. She is the babiest of baby faces, but I'm loving the edge to her character. I think it hasn't, like, it's just done so much, the passion. Yeah, it's just boosting her character up, and it's making her even more rootable and more likable, in my opinion. Rather than just the Willow who gets portrayed and she smiles, and yeah, I'm just liking it.
Yeah, I agree. Me too. I thought it was a good promo. Wish we could, yeah, like I said, wish we could have seen the match on Dynamite, but that's, at least she had the chance to cut a pretty good promo, and yeah, Character's great.
It's made him more legit as a champion and as a,
Hmm.
I would say, challenger to Monet, but Monet is the challenger.
Yeah.
It,
I know what you
yeah.
mean, though. Yeah.
It just elevated the character to the point where she feels very appropriate being in the spot that she's in on the card.
Yeah.
Next up we got the Jay White versus Rocky Romero. Jay won with the Blade Runner 1-2-3. Pat came out for a showdown. I can get behind this. Didn't make much notes on the match. But I'm very excited for. I'm assuming that we're getting the band back together. We're getting Death Triangle back together. And how sexy is that? Penta, Phoenix, Pac versus the Guns and Jay White. That is one sexy, sexy match of amazing ring work that we will see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've
But
hit the
but
nail
as
on
for
the
the
head.
match,
That'll be a good match.
I did think it was weird that they built it up like, oh, this is his opportunity, to get the trios, but then he lost anyway. So then it was just now he's back to square one of being alone. It was just a bit weird. It was just a bit convoluted, but I don't know.
Yeah, if we're building up to that
For
match,
like a squash match, which is what it felt like. Like I know they tried to
it
put off as
did.
he wrestled the perfect match. I'm sorry, that means fuck all to me. He wrestled the perfect match. I couldn't give a shit. They wrestled the perfect match. It just does nothing for me. He lost, unless it is like the perfect match, like Danielson Osprey. That to me is he wrestled the perfect match. That statement has credit to it. But he wrestled the perfect match. Oh, he was a hair away. I didn't. Yeah, it just.
You're
And
not
again, I love
gonna.
Jay White so much that it's just not who I want to see Jay White going up against.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm
you're
not.
not gonna remember that, are you? You're not gonna remember. Oh, yeah, Rocky Romero, he lost the match, but he came so close. Like really, in an
Yeah,
episode of Dynamite against Jay White, you're not gonna remember that. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
yeah. But that's an exciting prospect. Um, and then we got a Samoa Joe promo of him training. Just kind of keeping Joe fresh in people's minds.
Hmm. Don't forget
But
about
I do
Joe.
wonder what. Don't you forget about Joe? I do wonder what the next step will be though for him. What
Yeah, I
title
don't.
he'll go after. I don't think it's going to be the main belt, like, but the way they're kind of keeping him present, you'd think he's going to come into play somewhere, perhaps for a card for a quick feud,
That would bang.
cup. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be like a long program where he's going to win the belt and he's the challenger. But I think definitely gearing him up for like for just like a quick like a banger match, which I'm not mad about. I'm not mad about that. He's just come off his bloody world title
Yeah,
reign
exactly.
where he was on top. So and
Yeah,
now that's moved and there's more room for other people at the top. We're done with the Joe at the top chapter, but that's not to say that he can't fit into other things.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. You don't want him to like lose. You don't want him to like fall off completely and people to forget. But it's Samoa Joe. You're not going to forget about him. And he's like, there's so many feuds you could put him in, and it'd be so exciting to
I
watch.
think the
So
character of Joe, there's some characters where you can easily get them in through character work. And again, this isn't a discredit to Joe as a character at all, but Joe is a very belt based character. He's no bullshit.
mm,
He's not going to get into feuds with
for
the
no
Callis
reason.
family or blood
Yeah,
feuds, you know. Some characters would because they're emotions, but he's not an emotional person. So that's
yeah,
why I'm saying I feel like he's going to be going in for a title and we're going to have like a little program.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point.
Maybe setting him up for like All In or something. But like I
Mhm.
say, you're kind of limited with what you can do. And again, not in a bad way, not in a bad way at all, because that's
It
why he's got the
works.
big match feel. He's
Yeah,
got the big match feel and the big, that's the whole fucking reason why he just doesn't get involved in the bullshit.
yeah, 100%.
His character. So yeah, looking forward to see what he does next. And then we had the main event, which had half an hour, and like you say, this is all about bringing out the dark side of Copeland, and I mean, I feel like we say this for every main event of Dynamite, but what a match!
Yeah, so
Wow,
good,
they
so
just
good.
left it all. there's some matches where they say they leave a little piece of the soul in the ring.
Yeah.
And there was definitely a bit of soul left in Edmonton, I think, on Wednesday.
Yeah, 100%. And there was a lot of blood left in the ring too.
A
Um,
lot of blood.
it was
Yes,
what a
the
spectacle it
colour he
was.
got.
Yeah,
And I felt the
dripping.
visual though of it, the blood on the canvas and the blood on Copeland's tights, just what a visual, what a spectacle.
Hmm.
It just, and I thought it was a great use of colour. I think it was, just forcefully put in there. It definitely elevated the match, and took it up to a higher gear.
Yeah, it did. And it's took me a while to kind of get to this point with blood in wrestling. I used to think like, so unnecessary, stop it. Like it's disgusting, but I appreciate it a lot more now. Um, I think because you're right, it does kind of it can elevate a match. Not all the time, but I think in this case
Like any
it did.
gimmick,
Yeah.
it should be just seen as that, a gimmick.
Yes.
And like you say, sometimes, I think from you why you had that opinion is, especially early days AEW, it was so overdone, and then, the only other time you'd see it was on the indies, and
Yeah.
like the violent indies, as well. So it could be quite jarring. Um, but
Yeah, and I think it can be shocking as well if you're not used to it. Um,
yeah,
I feel like Lucha
which can be
Underground.
good,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it can be a good
but
thing,
it
but
can also desensitize.
yeah, and you can be a bit like, oh my God, that's disgusting. I mean, thinking like Cody Rhodes versus Justin, like one of
Yeah.
their match was in. I just remember that being insanely bloody and just being
And if
like,
that's all you can think about is
I
just
don't
the
want to
blood
watch
and how
that.
grossed out you were
Yeah.
by it. But one of the best matches was one of the most violent matches, Hangman versus Swerve.
Yes. I feel like
So,
that to
it's
me was a turning point for me. I was like, this is one of the best matches I've ever seen. I love every second of it. It's sick, it's twisted, it's disgusting, and I'm kind of turned on. So, you know,
No, I'm sorry, all the female demographic tuned out after that. It
of
turned away
course,
all the female fans from that. Um, but yeah, there were some great moments, the use of the chair in the offense, the planting of Brody Lee on the apron, which is when he, gained the colour. Um, the Death Valley driver on the apron to Brody
oof,
King.
yeah.
Um, and the ending of Cope spearing King through the table, and then him getting into the ring and the spear again.
I love
Uh,
that because the apron to the table looked like too big of a gap for it to work,
mm,
but because it was such a big gap, and sometimes with like matches like this, it's like shit, are they going to make it? And they kind of it's sort of obvious that they've had to fill that gap for their own safety, but actually like the way they pulled it off just looked insane and it didn't look fake like they were doing it on purpose sort of thing, if that makes sense. It just looked really cool. What a great spot and a great way to end a match.
yeah, and Copeland's so hard hitting, but it's not until you see him with a big guy you realize, like I said last episode, Cope is a big fucking guy and he can hit
Yeah,
and he is strong. When he lifted Brody King, on his back, he is strong, and it kind of makes you wince though because you're also like his neck and his spinal injury. But I love this because I thought they were so evenly matched,
definitely, yeah.
with their physicality. And as fun as it is to watch two clashing styles, it's always great to just watch two people just. And then what advantage do you have if you're both as physical as each other? Well, then it's got to descend into violence, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we then had the beatdown from King onto Copeland. Kyle O'Reilly uh, made good on his promises last week when he was saying about how Copeland's his childhood hero, and
Oh,
made the
I love
save.
him. I love him
So
so
that was,
much.
yeah, he's very wholesome.
Did you
Um,
watch him on their YouTube channel on AEW on the interview with RJ City?
was it recent?
It was like maybe last week. I would
No, I
recommend
was seeing
watching
it.
it. It's
Hey
so
W is
funny.
great. It
Yeah,
is great.
Kyle O'Reilly just being himself and just being really funny for 15 minutes straight. It's like joy to watch. 10 out of 10. Recommend.
I will get that on. Um, but yeah, they definitely, like you say, the motive of the House of Black. And even though Copeland won, did he? Because the House of Black motive was just, it appears,
Yeah,
like you say, to make show how much of a sick bitch he is.
which is exactly what
Was
happened.
Brody King just there to push him to his absolute limits? Is he just playing into their hands?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very interesting stuff. And then we got Monet, which just kind of felt kind of random after all this.
Yeah,
Uh,
it didn't
it
feel like
wasn't
sort of out
even,
of
I don't
place.
even know if it was even announced or anything. And she responded to Willow. But I will say about this promo, it felt more authentic than the others. To
Yeah.
me, like it felt less wooden.
Yeah, it didn't feel wooden. You can still tell that it's scripted, like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
which is fair enough. I'm not saying that one of your skills as a wrestler should be to improvise a promo off the top of your head. I'm not saying that, and I totally understand how difficult it is. I'm just saying you can tell it's scripted. That's all.
Yeah.
Um,
I think as we're getting closer to Double or Nothing, maybe she's becoming more comfortable and the
yeah.
prospect of wrestling and the fact that, she's going to be doing promos forever. Uh, but yeah, it wasn't totally necessary. We didn't need it there. She's just kind of repeating the same old
Yeah, it
rhetoric.
wasn't remarkable, was it? It was just like you say, saying the same stuff, pretty predictable. Like, yeah, we know, we get it. You're annoyed
Yeah,
that she injured you, and you think you're gonna win. We get
yeah,
it.
fine. And then we got a post-match interview, which is interesting because normally it's the main event and then the closing angle and then da da da. But it was interesting to Dynamite because we didn't. We got like we said this random like Monet like oh stick that in there fuck and then we got some other stuff. So I thought that was a bit of a shake up to what we used to.
Yeah, it changed the
Like I
pace up a
said,
bit.
post-match interview. Kyle O'Reilly asked for a shot at the Cup Open at Vancouver, his hometown. So that'll be great. That'll be on
Yeah,
Collision and yeah, looking
I
forward
would
to
watch
seeing
that
that.
match.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a draw. It's what the Cup Open should be about, and it makes sense. Like Kyle Riley's not just there to be a good
Be
friend or
besties,
for
yeah.
childhood hero. He has ambition. He's not a mug.
Hmm.
Um, and then we got the books coming out saying the show don't go off till they say they've got an overrun. R.I.P. a young Sheldon. Um, I kind of wished Kenny a get well soon. How considerate. And the books baited Tony Khan as well, sending their sympathies to him. And then basically they were just being obnoxious. FTR came out and announced that the two opponents would be Kingston and Danielson as competitors for them at Double or Nothing. There was then a beatdown.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that was the end of the show. That was a pretty cool way to end the show because you obviously you're building up for this big match. What do you think about Kingston and Bryan being added to the team?
I mean, it doesn't like totally reinvent the wheel and like it's not as
Mm.
like I was so excited to see who it could be and then it was them, but it's not bad.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Danielson got a huge reaction and he's a great wrestler. He doesn't have that much time left as a full-time competitor, so yeah, why not throw him in? Kingston, I don't know, I guess he has nothing to do. I guess he's fun. He's a plucky baby face. He's great for the authoritative heels. He's a great anesthetist to that. But I don't know. I just wasn't like, oh my God, like I was quite intrigued about it, and then it was them. And again, it makes sense. It's not terrible. It's fine.
yeah. I agree. That was sort of my reaction as well. I was like,
Is
oh,
my
it's fine.
rhetoric to that.
I mean,
Oh, nice.
I love the Blackpool Combat Club, and and I love Eddie Kingston too, and all the stories that they've had together. So I was
Mhm.
happy to see them like, yeah, why not get involved in this big storyline? You've got the time to explain why. And you've got four on that team, like four quite pure wrestlers. Well, not that Eddie Kingston's not really a pure wrestler, but you know what I mean. Like he's a brawler, um, and they all love to fighting for what they
Yeah.
think is right. So why? And they go up against the Young Bucks. and the Elite who've just been complete arseholes. And
Yeah, it makes
these are the
complete
men who
sense.
I believe would want to fight against arseholes.
Yeah, doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it's fine, and it'll be a great match, and it'll be a great build up,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's like you say, it's they would want to fight for justice, and
Yeah.
yeah. So that was the end of the show. What a kind of yeah. Your thoughts? Like for me, it was decent. It was a decent show, but there was no. I get it. It was all building. There was lots of building towards storylines, but there was no massive. Especially since the past few weeks, there's been crazy moments and crazy closing angles. This was just kind of basically booking matches for Double or Nothing. Some great wrestling, but it was pretty. It was just like the closing angle. Like I say, it didn't reinvent the wheel. It was just carrying on. And not every week can have big moments. Not every week
Yeah.
can. You have to have those build up moments to have the payoff at the pay-per-views or to have those crazy segments. Yeah, I mean, I gave it in my head a 7.5.
Yeah, I was thinking 7.5, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to dip to a 7, but then I think we had a great opener and a great closer match as
Yeah.
well, and
Yeah,
I
I think
think that
7.5 is more reasonable considering the quality of the wrestling there.
and I do think that'll be a memorable match when people look back on Brody King's best matches and Copeland's best match. I genuinely do think. Not I'm saying, oh my God, that was match of the year, but I do think that is a memorable match that you could rewatch. Um, and like we said, there
Definitely.
was, even though it might not be the most exciting, there's a lot of speculation and we're excited for the future. We might not be excited for this episode, but we're excited for the future. But like I say, just a lot of questionable things as well. So yeah, that'll be a 7.5. So we just have two stories to touch on. I would say small, but one of them is quite, I think, just important to just talk about in terms of like respect and boundaries. So I don't want to say small in that way, but in terms of like the overall wrestling landscape, it has been quite quiet. So we'll start with that one. Um, so recently, there was an incident at an ROH taping with Sky Blue, and she was heckled by a member in the crowd in the front row, making vulgar comments, all that, objectifying her basically the whole match, to the point where Aubrey F. Edwards, who was reffing the match, told him to be kicked out, directed security towards him. And yeah, he had a child with him. And there was some kind of, like I said, even when security's out, altercation. So yeah, I mean, just just insane. Just wanted to touch upon it because how anyone can think that's acceptable to treat a performer, someone, you've paid money to see this and you're not a part of the show, and even if you were, that's not a way to be a part of it. I mean, I don't even, I feel like, do I even need to lecture people on how to not sexualize and respect women? I shouldn't have to, but just, just, yeah. I mean, it's just shocking that people will in 2024 continue to act that way. And I know people are characters, and I know it's easy to forget that there are just human beings, but
Yeah, but
it
my
isn't
God.
real. Like, you know, the even if they heal, even if they've got a certain confidence, there is no way to treat anyone like that. There's no justification for it anyway. But yeah, I mean, just like saying, my God, I couldn't even imagine trying
Yeah,
to do my job, be professional, and have my show while I'm being essentially assaulted.
yeah, exactly. And we touched on it a little bit before it happened on Dynamite. I don't know exactly what happened, but Soraya was like, "These two creeps in the front row, get the camera on them. Like, women, watch out. These two creeps." I'm not sure. I think I've seen. I think that was like real because I've seen people talk about this in
Yeah.
relation to the Sky Blue story, being like, "Oh, then this happened on Dynamite too." So I don't think it was, Soraya just being in character or whatever. yeah, apparently we do need to still lecture men on shit like this because for fuck's sake, why does it keep happening? And I've seen so many people try to defend it on Twitter as well. Not people in my circles,
Really?
but
I haven't seen that. I've just
I've
seen
s-
like a lot of positivity. So I was going to say like
yeah,
it's quite nice to see a lot of people. I mean, the circles that I'm on online, people have been condemning it. So, but it
yeah,
doesn't surprise me that, if there's one, there's going to be more that
yeah.
share that sort of
Um,
mentality that it's acceptable to say those things.
one of the things. So I think the reason that I saw this is because people who I follow were going like, "Shut up, you dickhead," basically.
Yeah,
Which
yeah, yeah, yeah.
obviously, like, yeah, obviously stick up for it. But I also am just like, stop giving them attention because that's just giving them more traction that they want. But at the end of the day, you got to stick up for what you think is right. That's totally fair. Because this person was being a dick, and he was like, "Well, I'm a father, and I think you should stop dressing like that," and blah blah blah. Victim blaming 101. What does Sky Blue expect? It's nowhere near as bad as it used to be in the 80s. She needs to grow up, and it's just like, shut up. Just shut up, you twat. Like, you just missed the point entirely. It doesn't matter what you think, it never makes it okay to harass a woman.
Yeah.
Whether she is a performer out in public, if she is wearing fucking wrestling gear with lots of skin showing, or if she's just sat there not doing anything. It's never okay. It's never okay. Just shut the fuck up.
I hate this part of like it's a culture of wrestling.
Yeah.
It's a part of wrestling, um, which
Maybe
it's
wrestling is
not.
the
And
problem.
even when it was, even when it, even when it was, it was just deemed as acceptable by a large majority. It still wasn't acceptable.
Exactly.
You would, if you'd have done that in the streets to some random woman, you'd be arrested. So what makes it different when you're indoor in a venue? I don't understand.
I think when people pay money for a ticket, they think it gives them some sort of entitlement to do whatever they want because they've paid to be front row. And in
Yeah,
fact, it's
the
exactly the
entitlement.
opposite. hmm It's like you are in a public space, but it's also a TV show, and it's also you're surrounded by loads of people who are going to think you're an asshole, and you are going to get kicked out because security are there for that exact reason. And then you've just wasted your own money because you couldn't not be an asshole for 3 hours. Like, it's infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, you're ruining everyone's experience, including your own, which, at that point, fuck your experience. But, like, what is the gain, you know?
I was shocked to find out that this guy had a kid with him as well. Like, for God's sake,
Yeah.
there's nothing to say. There's nothing to say. It's just ridiculous.
Uh, yeah, it's just ridiculous and it needs to be called out. Just like, when MJF and that guy that brought the anti-Semitic sign, anytime there's any kind of, we need to condemn it because otherwise people are just going to think it's okay. Um,
Yeah.
and it's never okay. The line, even beside all the sexist, anti-Semitic, whatever it would be, I don't understand. You're not a part of the show,
Yeah.
like in any shape or form.
Yeah.
Um, you can bring a sign, you can cheer, you can boo. They want crowd participation, but you're not the show.
Get over yourself. This, right. Oh, you got me going now. This reminded me of I went to a TNA show in Coventry a couple of months ago. Maybe I think it was like December, just gone. And Trinity was wrestling, and there was a couple of guys a couple of rows behind me who kept on thought they were so funny because they kept on making like USO related chants at her, and they wouldn't shut up. They just kept on going like I can't even remember like we the ones like Roman Reigns jokes as well, just because she happens to be married to one of the Uso twins, and then making this connection. I was just like, and they just wouldn't shut up, and like to the point where it was
Yeah.
distracting everyone else, and it's like it was quite a small arena like as well, so you couldn't ignore it. It wasn't dead loud in there. It was these two guys just being so obnoxious, and I was like I just found it so rude that they were like there was two women wrestling in the ring and two men were just trying to make it about men and just wouldn't shut up. So I just turned around and went, "Can you just shut up?" And they were like, They did shut up after that, to be fair, but you could tell they were a bit
Yeah.
pissed off, and they were like, "Why?" Like they didn't see what they'd done wrong, and they were like, "Oh, she must
And
be a
that's why we're
Sami
talking
Zayn
about
fan."
it.
Exactly,
It's,
and
it's the self-awareness, and
yeah,
there's a line where it's obvious where if you're harassing someone, obvious condemnation. But on that topic, we just want to touch upon, because that should be obvious of not
yeah,
being a horrible person, but just in general, like, just because you bought a ticket, there's no entitlement to anything. There's no And wrestling fans are very entitled, be it like waiting outside of a hotel room, airports, just
yeah.
whatever. The entitlement of wrestling fans knows no bounds. And it's always kind of been that way because of kayfabe, unfortunately. I think, people believe that they're in character all the time, they're going to meet that character. But either way, it's like you say, like, you're not.
No
It's
one
just
else.
social cues. It's just social
Yeah,
cues, and the
exactly.
wrestling fans just don't have a clue how to manage those and just take it too far.
It's like read the room. Just read the
But
room.
like, those types of people, you can tell they just haven't been to a lot of live events before, or
Mm,
they just don't really understand crowd etiquette, which is like a big conversation in general, like concert etiquette, crowd etiquette.
mm.
Um, you're not just there for your experiences, other people around you. And like I say, they're just performers trying to do their job,
And it's so
and trying to
hard.
put on the best
Yeah.
show for you.
And I can't imagine how hard it must be when you try not to get distracted by someone. And by the way, I'm not saying the thing that happened at TNA is nowhere near as bad as actual sexual harassment. Let me just make that
No,
clear.
no, we're
But
just broadening the discussion, because
yeah,
that, like we say, it should be obvious that
yeah,
is condemned. But we're just discussing, and
yeah,
we're going to give some people the benefit of the doubt that maybe it is just self-awareness, or some people just don't have a clue, and they just think you just chant whatever and you just do whatever at a wrestling show, and we're just here to say, nah,
it's not like that. And can you
that
imagine
that
being
ain't
a
how you
wrestler
act.
and being a wrestler is part like you got to
Mm.
listen to the crowd and like feed off their reactions. That's a key part of being a wrestler. But then someone's being an asshole to you, and you try not to get distracted. God forbid they're sexually harassing you. How the fuck do you do your job? How can you
Yeah.
focus? No
And I mean,
one is
there's
ever
getting
expected
heat.
to do that in real life.
There's
They're
heckling
performers.
the crowd heckling you. We're not saying don't say anything. We're not. I mean, God, do people cross the line all the time? MGF throwing tequila in a kid's face. Wrestlers and fans alike cross and walk that line, and that line can be
Mm,
very risky. But when you're taking it away from the action, away from the people in the ring,
that's
if you
it.
don't like it, just don't do anything, and that reaction will show the disinterest
Yeah,
way more than anything else.
yeah,
But just because you're not interested, like you say, like the Naomi thing, you wanted to watch that match, and you've then taken away from someone else's experience, which is
exactly.
just such a selfish thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. And you could sort of tell that other people were thinking it as well, but no one else wanted to say anything because,
It's like the
it,
hardcore country chant. Do you remember that at the indie show,
yes, Mickey
All
James.
In?
Yeah,
And that was hijacked her match.
yeah. And that's what I mean. It's so hard for the wrestlers to react to something like that because you want to
Yeah,
take it
what
on
do
the
you want them to
chin,
do?
and but you don't know how to take it, and you kind of want to be like, okay, can you shut the fuck up now? But you can't say that. It puts them in such an awkward position, and it's just shut up, just shut up sometimes. That's the moral of the story.
Just shut up sometimes. That's the conclusion. And then our second story is Ric Flair just having a bit of a meltdown at Gainesville restaurant. I don't know whether you saw that, his little Karen moment.
Yes. What on right? There's a video came up on my Twitter timeline. This 3 minute video with the
Yeah,
caption
three
like
minutes.
Ric Flair at a restaurant, like argument or something. And I clicked on it, and this man is slurring like he's having a stroke or something. I could not understand a thing this man was saying. But basically
Yeah.
the gist of it is that he's just going off at a poor restaurant employee for something. I still don't understand. I've tried to read like what's happened. I don't understand it still.
He so he'd been in there, he'd spent a lot of money, as you
About
say,
a
quite drunk.
1,000, 500.
1,500.
How do you spend that much at a restaurant? How? How?
And there was a bit of commotion, bit of buzz. He's taking pictures of fans, and he got asked to leave because he had an issue with the kitchen manager because he was taking too long in the bathroom. Drunk person hogging up the bathroom. God knows what he was doing in there, but that's kind of how it all sort of escalated, and then he kind of popped off after being asked to leave.
And he was saying stuff like, "This is the most disrespected I've ever been in my entire." Oh, he put a tweet, didn't he? Like, "This is the most disrespected I've ever been in my entire life." Like, Ric Flair, really? Your entire life?
Yeah.
Come on.
He maintains he did nothing wrong. He says he did not curse or accost anyone. And yeah, he referred to the man in the blue shirt as Nicholas Dickhead. And he says everything was cool until the man in the blue shirt, who he then called a dipshit, came along. At the end of the video, Flair tells the man to talk to him outside like a man. Then a patron says he will take him up on the offer before it cuts off. So,
Well, that sounds
he was
like a threat.
he was raging for a street fight.
Get the cameras
Spoiling
out.
for one. He's just trying to get his final match, guys. Come on.
Did you? I wasn't sure when you started saying about Ric Flair because I forgot about this. I wasn't sure if you were going to start saying about the other news story that Ric Flair's featured in this week, which is apparently that he's gone on the record saying that he had a heart attack during his last match.
Yeah.
I actually just had a heart
And he
attack.
wants more. Just casually, he spoke about it casually, had like a little heart attack, and it just continued.
I feel bad for laughing, but
just what a train wreck. It is kind of sad. He obviously is an alcoholic, obviously has his issues, but I mean, kind of God bless him. He's an icon till the end, he's partying till the end. You gotta love a bit of Ric Flair, but then it's just a fucking mess, isn't it? What can you say? 80s wrestlers, man. 70s wrestlers, territories wrestlers. What can you say?
he needs to go to bed and have a quiet night. Is what he needs.
Yeah, Ric Flair versus the manager. Final match. Book it, Tony Khan. Sponsored by Woo Energy. So that will wrap up the news cycle this week, clearly. But yeah, an interesting week. We'll be back next week for another Dynamite review, both of us together. And yeah, we're interested to see where the stories go from here. We're still enjoying the product. We appreciate all feedback, all comments, all engagement. It definitely helps us. Liking the video helps a lot. And just I saw some people discovered us from their YouTube homepage, or it was suggested by the algorithm. So that's fantastic, and all that engagement helps us to just reach out to more people.
Yeah, and that's great info to know as well, because that helps us to figure out like what have we got to do to
telling
reach
us how you
people.
discovered us.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What have we done right for the algorithm to get us in that homepage? I don't know.
I think it's just people, liking, watching the video,
Definitely, yeah.
to the end and commenting. It really does. That's kind of the main markers of engagement. So hopefully we can just keep putting content out that people like and engage with. And yeah, we'll be back next week, and who knows, maybe one day with a bold tier ranking of wrestlers.
Let us know down in the comments if that's the content you want to see, and be sure to let me know who your favourite bald wrestler is.
I must bid you adieu, goodbye, and good night, bye.
I wish you died in the womb.